This is the best of Beyond the Bench 2022 with Nick Morgasen and Nick Fodera. Check that list once or twice to see if you're naughty or nice. Happy holidays!
Ho, 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 ho! Merry Christmas!
Welcome to the best of Beyond the Bench for 2022. Along with my co-host Nick Fodera, I'm Nick Morgasen. It's been quite a long year, including for this podcast. And by the way, Nick, it's been a very long year for this podcast.
It has. The reason why we didn't do one last year was because
we were early.
We had just started in October of that year, I believe. So we didn't have enough material to get you through a best of, but we do now. So
there is so much.
So basically, we basically distilled the essence of Beyond the Bench into these clips that we're going to show you, and it really represented. It's like the year in review. It's everything that was weird, wild, absurd, and kind of stupid.
Right. And by the way, Merry Christmas Eve if you're watching this now.
Yeah, happy holidays, everybody.
Because it's literally dropping on Christmas Eve, this first best of, and as you'll hear at the end of part one, you're going to see the second part on New Year's Eve. So you're going to get to say goodbye to 2022 officially with us.
Flush it down the toilet with Empty the Bench Podcast Network.
Wow, way to go. All right, so here's how we're going to break this all down, okay? So we have quite a few big stories. We have quite a few interviews going on and a whole lot more. So let's get started. Two big stories that you and I focused on in 2022. The first one is the unfortunate passing of Bob Saget.
Now, this one originally aired on January the 14th, so it was 2 weeks into the new year, and it was really a shock because it was you didn't expect you didn't expect it, and B, it's like people, the outpouring of condolences, remembrances, it really did demonstrate how much everybody loved Bob Saget and how much of a mark he left on American pop culture, not even just in the 80s, I mean in the stand-up scene as well. And you can see that in the clip that we're going to show. So
I mean, it's one of those American icons for us, at least, because again, both of us born in the 90s, kind of when he had a career already, but the 90s, he really took off in a different way, being on Full House, now, what's so ironic about his career, and I'm sure you know this, but some people don't. Do you really know what his comedic stand-up is like outside of Full House?
Very, very, very dirty.
Well, I should say was very, very dirty. And I wanted to see him so bad, but my parents at the time were just like, about that.
His HBO special should tide you over.
I mean, but he was one of the funnier ones. He really, even at his, I don't know how old he was when he passed away, but even as he was getting older, he was funnier.
He was getting funnier as he got older, and again, it was a tragedy that he was taken too soon from us.
I mean, so for most people who didn't know the story, he was doing stand-up, I think, in Florida, and he went back to his hotel room and never woke up.
Yeah, and we did not know. I should add that as a caveat.
We were shocked. We didn't believe it.
Yeah, we did not. The reasoning for his death was still not known to us because, the day we were recording it, we had just found out. So
we were in shock.
Yeah, we were in shock. We were still kind of speculating. So again, take what you know, but again, we were working off the information that we had available at the time. Right.
And they brought back Full House as Fuller House. There was a lot of news surrounding that show. And now they're even talking about bringing back a Fuller House, which I kind of I'm not looking forward to it without him being in it.
What's the point? What's the point without Bob? What's the point?
That's what I mean. Like, there's certain shows over the years you can think of where if you didn't have a certain person, you can't do it. And Full House, or whatever you want to call it, because I'm annoyed that they keep changing the name of the show. But you can't have Full House, Fuller House, any house without Bob Saget. Okay?
Exactly.
It just, and there's all these rumors and speculations that they're trying to find a way to, like, when someone dies in real life, they want to, like, make it into a storyline to have his storyline end. I'm like, I hate when people do that.
That's just depressing.
It's weird, right? When people do that, like when these writers are like, "Oh, we got to write him out." How about just don't come back? But on top of that story, Nick brought an interesting story to my attention as well, which now I was into video games, but you're really into video games to the point.
You used to play a lot of video games.
Yes.
I still do. I still do. I hate using the term because it's become so loaded in this toxic fandom environment we find ourselves in, gamer. But yes,
that's fine.
To the extent that I play a lot of video games, yes.
So
I am that. However,
the story that happened was that Microsoft buys Activision. Now, Activision was going under unless they were going to get bought.
Activision was being kept afloat by their annual franchise. If it wasn't for Call of Duty, they'd pretty much be, sunk as a studio.
You want to know how old I am as a gamer? I'll give you one thing. There's only one series of games I think of from Activision. And it's a certain public figure who does a lot of half piping.
Tony Hawk.
Yes. I played those games constantly when they came out.
So we are in a brave new world of corporate mergers, but this was big because Activision is considered one of the biggest, if not the biggest, video game publisher in the industry. It's them and Electra and EA. But for Microsoft to basically just muscle everybody out of the way and use Activision as an exclusive, as an in-house, subsidiary of Microsoft, was huge.
I remember asking you if this could fall under the territory of monopoly.
And it absolutely can, but like I said then, and it's gotten worse now. But the antitrust laws in this country just are complete crap. So you can't really enforce them.
I'll give you one example. I'm not saying it's the greatest thing, but unfortunately, with the way COVID is, like, I think people are basically saying, screw the laws. These companies need to be bought or they're going to be dead. That's what's happening right now.
That's the justification they use?
No. I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that, unfortunately, to keep businesses afloat, they have to be bought.
Yeah, that's what they did. That's what Microsoft felt was the case. And there was still this controversy going on with Bobby Kotick and the sexual harassment he was accused of, and the culture.
And by the way,
of horrible, sexual harassment that he turned a blind eye to, if not helped foster. So
was that part of the clip you pulled, or no?
It was not part. It was not part of the clip that I pulled.
All right, so
it is. Use that as background information.
But let's quickly, because then we gotta air these clips. So, for quick context, Bobby Kotick was a dick, like in every way, shape, or form.
A douche with a capital bag.
I mean, like, once I learned everything about what this man was doing,
because I told you have to, because you learned it because of this.
And didn't he, if I'm not mistaken, basically golden parachute out?
Mm-hmm. Well, he's not out right now. They're searching for a successor, so it's
no. But I'm saying remember the joke we made, and we're not joking about the situation. We're joking about the whole golden parachute that he's basically being given.
Yeah, you're being paid $160 million to basically sexually.
Holy shit! I forgot it was that much money.
It might actually be more than that. I think that's a lowball figure.
No, but I'm saying I didn't even realize it could have been that amount of money.
Well, yeah, but the clip demonstrates that, as you will see.
Yeah, so check out these two stories. These two stories were probably two at the top. There's plenty of other stories. I'm sure we could have done 5 hours of best ofs, but the Bob Saget death and the Microsoft buying Activision stories were different because this show is not your typical cookie cutter. We're not going to talk about Taylor Swift a million times. We're not going to talk about, even though
We did talk about Taylor Swift.
But not for her, though.
Yeah.
Not for her, though. We talked about the whole issue with Ticketmaster, which I'm surprised that might make the list in the second half.
It might. Yeah, I think it might just make the list in
So,
the second half.
sit back, relax. This is the beginning of the program for our part 1 best of. Go check these clips out, and then we'll come back and we'll bring you some other material.
What I can say is that this is just an absolute tragedy because I was introduced to Bob Saget. I was not a fan of Full House.
What?
I was not a fan of Full House. I watched America's Funniest Home Videos every Sunday.
Yes. 8 years.
Or most Sundays when I was a kid.
8 years.
So that was my introduction to Bob Saget. Imagine my surprise, and a lot of other people my age, when we realized that Bob Saget was a filthy, filthy, filthy comedian. A genius.
We had no idea. That was a complete shocker when we finally grew up.
and his stand-up, I mean, he was a stand-up by trade, and he was really, really, really good. I mean, if you've seen The Aristocrats, you know that the man, he made swearing and toilet humor into an art form.
Well, the reason that he was so dirty is because he was
deliberately rebelling against the TV dad.
Oh, I wasn't even saying that. I was just saying, like, there were some things where if he ever did any of what he did in his comedy routine on TV, he would.
Oh yeah, he'd be drawn and quartered. It's not we're not talking about cancel culture here. That awful specter of reacting to cancel culture.
We're talking about common sense. Like we're
talking about common sense because the stuff that he did, the stuff that he put in his material was really sick shit.
But it was funny. Like
it was funny because he meant it. B, he was never mean or angry about it, and it was like he was so affable as a person.
You know what the weird thing is? Like when you look at most comedians, I could throw a few out there: Howie Mandel, Kevin Hart, a bunch of other big names in the world of comedy. A lot of them had interesting pasts before they became a comedian.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about Bob, now I'm sure he's had some dark moments because every comedian does. But the weird thing is, you don't think of him as like the angry, dark comedian, unlike a lot of the other comedians out there.
Yeah, and to a lot of an extent, a lot of comedians that we do think of as legends, like Lenny Bruce and George Carlin to a certain extent, and
hey, the 7 Dirty Words became the most famous thing.
Robin Williams and there were demons. I mean,
Gilbert,
there were some real demons, but Bob, I mean, not to say that Bob didn't have because the man dealt with loss at an age that nobody should have to, because he lost both siblings at I think when they were in their 30s, if I'm
right. And I forgot the name of the disease because it's a rare disease. Scleroderma, which, by the way, go donate to that foundation, which is trending all over social media.
He did a lot of charity work for that, and that's the other side of Bob Saget that people I don't think really appreciated until recently. That's just how nice of a guy he is.
He was willing to help.
Actually, was. He spent all these years saying, "I'm not Danny Tanner. I'm not Danny Tanner." Turns out he was all along.
Well, there was a scene that was trending all over social media that was put out by Netflix's social media accounts, and it was from the newer version, Fuller House, which he came back to be on, where Stephanie Tanner, that was Jodie Sweetin, which was one of the few that put out messages on social media.
Everybody pretty much did.
Right, but there was a scene where Stephanie is finally having a kid with, I can't remember the guy's name, but not important. But basically, when they were doing the whole reveal of what the name of the kid was going to be, and she's like, well, I'm going to name it, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the line exactly, but we're going to name Danielle Tanner, but in short, we're going to call the kid Danny Tanner.
Yeah.
And that scene was viral over the last couple days.
And that was the genius of Bob, where he could play this clean cut, all American guy just so flawlessly, and then turn around and make you laugh with the sickest shit you ever heard in your life.
And you know what? Like, people are, and this gets me really annoyed, media included, who are all speculating because he had a drinking problem over the years that maybe he drank himself to death, or that
Again, baseless speculations. And also, why is it that TMZ always gets these things first?
You know what, though? I have to say one thing. Years ago, and when we first started doing podcasts together, whether it was with Tom on Empty the Bench or Unspoken Podcast or now, that we used to despise TMZ because TMZ was known as a circus looking to make views.
Yeah, they pretty much still are.
But
the thing is,
they're
right about these things.
Right, but now I think they've gotten their shit together finally because they reported.
They're good at reporting certain things.
Well, I give them credit over the years because now they're actually doing their due diligences and
because they've always cultivated a network of people that journalists wouldn't normally talk to.
I wouldn't call them journalists. I call them circus clowns because that's how they acted.
Journalists, quote unquote, if we're going to put air quotes around it.
Well, what do you think? Why do you think Harvey Levin gets away with so much shit at TMZ?
Because he's a lawyer.
Because he's a lawyer. He knows how to bend the rules.
He knows what the system is. but even then, I just kept hoping that the story wasn't true when it came out that he.
That's so weird though. Is it weird though that now with social media? I remember back in the day when we didn't have social media and you were waiting if someone was going to die. The first time you would find out is on a network news or breaking news if another show was on, news would come in and break through and say that someone died. Now, the sick thing, and I think Tom and you and I have had this conversation many times, when we see a name trending on social media, what's the first thing that goes through our head?
Oh God, what happened?
Right. Remember, and unfortunately, and we didn't get to put in because I think we talked about it already, the Betty White death, where her name would trend for months and people thought that she died.
Yeah, and they would always be, I thought that, thank God.
Right. And now when you go on social media, you have to be terrified because when you see a name trending, you think someone died. And you know what? Like, I'm reading some of the reports that, like, some of the toxicology reports and, like, what happened the night when he got back to his hotel room. So it says the Fuller House star died in his sleep, quote, tucked in bed with the lights out. And it says police have painted a similar picture after a hotel security team member checked on Saget and found him lying on the bed, his left arm across his chest. Now, people are speculating that because his arm was on his chest, that he possibly might have had some heart issues that we don't know about. I've heard that quite a few times now. I don't know if it's true.
Again, baseless speculation.
And then it said that Saget was 65, which is young in today's time. Yeah. Was, quote, cold to the touch, yellow and clammy.
Which means he had been dead for a while.
Which is scary in a lot of ways.
But the thing is that, you know what? Social media is terrible for context. It's also terrible for in terms of, giving his family, time and space to grieve.
But the other thing is, like, so it says both the initial police report and a preliminary autopsy have ruled out foul play and drugs. TMZ reported Tuesday that investigators are eyeing a heart attack or a stroke. Now, we've seen this many times, and this is not baseless information. We've seen people die in their sleep, unfortunately, from heart attacks or strokes. It happens.
Yeah, it does. But, like, at this point, I'm not going to speculate because, again, I'm not a doctor and nor do I play one on TV.
Oh, no, I'm not speculating. I'm just saying, like, it would make sense, I guess, if it was a heart attack or a stroke.
It would make more sense because what are you going to say? Anti-vaxxers were already circulating the booster shot he had gotten.
Yeah,
Killed him.
and by the way, this man was beloved by every person he worked with. I don't know if you saw the pictures from the How I Met Your Mother TV family also, because you know that he was the TV voice that you wouldn't see. Yep. So everyone was tributes from there. His Fuller House family, by the way.
Nobody had an unkind word to say about him.
The thing that pisses me off is that a certain pair of sisters didn't say anything on social media, but that's a whole different issue. Did they?
Yeah, they did.
Oh, when did they do it? Because I didn't see it.
Instagram the day after he died.
I didn't see that, but it took them a long time. Everybody else was right on it.
Maybe it took time to draft a statement. You don't. You know, it's hard to tell these things. This is pretty big. So, putting aside the controversies that Activision has inflicted upon themselves in the past couple of months, putting that aside for a second, and talking about what this means for Microsoft, it really seems to me like it's exclusives or die. Because Sony, look at their competitors. You look at Sony, you look at Nintendo, and you see that Sony has had a lot more exclusives over the past couple of console generations. You've had things like Infamous, which sold a lot. You have the Ghost of Tsushima. You got the exclusive rights to work with the Marvel license because you've got Insomniac, and you've got Sucker Punch, and I'm talking about development studios. And you've got Guerrilla Games exclusively working for you, and Naughty Dog. So Microsoft, instead of either starting these studios, they just said, you know what, we'll buy them.
Well, that's the thing.
And they bought Bethesda, which came with their software, and ZeniMax, and which means that they have the rights to Doom now, and Fallout, and to Starfield, which is coming out in November.
But why spend all the money and do it yourself when you could just purchase a production company that does it for you?
Yeah, and the fact that this is going to be a huge boost to their Xbox Game Pass software, which they're really betting on in their generation of hardware, it's really a boom, because you need to be able. Look, streaming is the name of the game now. They are betting on you getting an Xbox specifically to use it for Xbox Game Pass. And what it does, it opens up it opens up a infinite amount of possibilities about what they can do with this license. But the thing is, you have to understand what a fallout from grace from this is for Activision.
Well,
because Activision is in and of itself a multi-billion-dollar company.
No,
they were the ones that used to buy other developers.
Well,
so now they're being bought themselves, and you can't tell me the personal issues I was referring to are the sexual assault allegations against CEO Bobby Kotick.
Wait a minute. So why do I feel like when you throw a dart lately that you're going to hit a sexual harassment situation?
This is different, though, because this is Bobby Kotick. If you know anything about the gaming industry, Bobby Kotick was always one of the untouchable executives. I mean, his reputation was pretty much shit among the video game public, but he was one of the movers and shakers of the industry. If there was something that he committed to, chances are everybody else was going to follow him.
He was an influencer. If he did something, everybody else did it.
But he turned out to be a verbally and sexually abusive asshole, really.
You know why?
Because he's been accused of fostering a culture or Activision is accused of fostering a culture that's really akin to a frat house. And again, sexual assault allegations from multiple employees, and we know that Kotick was aware of all this stuff and did nothing. What's interesting here is that one of the people who went hardest after him and Activision by proxy was Phil Spencer, who is the president of Microsoft Games now. So I guess Microsoft felt like, you know what? In order to fix this problem, we'll buy him.
Well, you need to remember one thing here with companies like Microsoft, companies like Google, companies like Amazon. $68.7 billion to Microsoft is FU money. Believe it or not.
It is, but I mean, I wouldn't say it's
now, let me clear up one thing. I'm not talking about that they paid off just to get rid of those situations. They can afford that. Wait a minute. They can afford that money and 10 times more if they really wanted to.
Yes, but the issue that I have here is that Kotick, gets to stay in his CEO role.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I didn't see that.
But until the sale goes through at the end of next year, and then he leaves. Apparently, that's contingent upon the deal.
You know why? Because
reported yesterday, I think Jason Schreier and
I can tell you why companies do that.
Bloomberg, I'm blanking on her name.
No, but you want to know why companies do that? Companies do that because they don't want to upset the apple cart before a deal. So they keep the current management in place until the deal is secured and it goes through.
So Kotick is out, but he should have been out ages ago. And he's due to make a significant amount as a gold parachute. So the rich are getting richer, and the scumbag is getting a big payday. He's not actually getting what he deserves, which is criminal prosecution.
Nick, unfortunately, you're talking about a situation that's not only in the gaming community. You're talking about CEOs of major companies that have major secrets that they live behind, and when they finally get investigated and they're told their stories are told in truth, the companies have to get rid of them, and the only way they can get rid of them is by giving them gold parachute so that they could start fresh with someone else in charge.
And that is entirely my point. The fact that they can fess up to or essentially fess up to what they did and still escape without facing any kind of punitive measures is just horrible.
By the way,
fucking bullshit is what it is.
By the way, it says that according to the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, that sued Activision Blizzard for, like you said, promoting a culture of constant sexual harassment, and quote, and more employees have come forward with more allegations of sexual misconduct ever since, and the company reached an $18 million settlement with the U.S. Equal Opportunity Commission in September.
Which, if the state of California is on your ass because of what happened here, that means you screwed up.
And I wouldn't say California is exactly the best run state by any means, but
yes, but in order to get any sort of governmental body involved in an investigation to what you did, I mean, it doesn't look good.
And also, look at the facts.
At the very least, it doesn't look good.
Wait a minute. It says that, first of all, it says that the settlement is being appealed, and reports indicate that nearly 40 Activision Blizzard employees have reportedly exited the company since last July.
Oh yeah, you've seen a whole bunch of Activision Blizzard employees walk off the job. It's strike because really they wanted Kotick gone, and you've seen a bunch of them resign too. Well, a lot of the people that were responsible for propagating that kind of abuse or looking the other way were the ones who resigned. So I can't really shed any tears for them.
Nick, money.
Yes, I understand.
And I'm not agreeing with it in any way, shape, or form. It's like what you told me.
Really, it's emblematic of the problems that it's emblematic of several problems in the gaming industry.
It's not just the gaming industry, though, Nick. That my point is,
putting aside the personal issues just for a second,
right?
The fact that Microsoft can just buy everybody and leave no competition—that's antitrust lawsuits.
Wait a minute.
That's antitrust.
Wait a minute.
It should be a violation of antitrust laws, but it's not.
For what? Buying up a company that has sexual harassment claims?
Buying up several major publishers and developers.
Well, buying up developers and publishers is the name of the game. I understand what you're saying about the sexual harassment claim,
but it should not be the name of the game. You can say the same thing about it's monopolizing.
All right, but unfortunately, and this is just my prediction gut going 10, 15 years from now, maybe, or sooner, I think you're going to see away with the monopoly rule at some point. And the reason
the board game, folks.
Right, I'm talking about like in my business because I can give you an example. In the radio business, in every market in the country, you can technically own up to 8 radio stations under a conglomerate. So the problem that you're having, though, is that because companies and radio stations are going out of business, the bigger conglomerates are buying them up. So how do you stop a monopoly? You can't.
It's like a Russian nesting doll of corporate conglomerates.
All right, here we go. We're back. And the Bob Saget death and the Microsoft buying Activision stories were definitely, would you say, creatively different?
It's creatively different, even though there is a tinge of tragedy to it. But there was also another component to what we did on Beyond the Bench this year: interviews.
Yeah, so and this is not Nick's fault. Like, he had scheduling differences why he couldn't do these interviews, but I sat down with some interesting people, and Nick knows this. I'm a radio nerd. I talk to radio people constantly. So 2 people who I got to speak to: Dana Parisi. That's her real name, but she used to be MJ on WBLI on Long Island, for context, for most people who are not listening in the New York area.
And for the clip itself, I mean, you guys are just nerding out together. You could see in the clip we chose where it was a really well conducted interview. I mean, really good job. Seriously.
No, I appreciate that.
Really well. And
that was at a time when the radio business, and still is, by the way, I shouldn't say at a time because it still is. The radio business is being volcanically erupted.
I mean, if there's really anything left to erupt, it's kind of like Pompeii after the blast,
right? So Dana used to be on, like I said, WBLI. She unfortunately lost her job to the Cox Media cuts. Remember, we talked about how Cox Media basically went in and said, "Oh no, you don't," and pulled the carpet out from a bunch of people.
Literally did, and the frustration that she feels is definitely, you can feel it in the background in the edge of her voice. I mean, she's kind of chewing on that kind of visceral sadness. It's like all of a sudden it was here, now it's gone.
And you know what? I feel bad for her because trust me, from myself alone what the hours we put in to work to radio, and we don't get the value sometimes we properly deserve.
Well, is there a postscript to this? Did she end up having what did end up happening to Dana?
The update is she's still out of radio. I don't know what she's doing right now. I haven't gotten that far. I think I read she's doing a catering business with her sister, is what I was reading. It's a public thing, so it's not like I'm speaking out of character. It's on Facebook. I've seen it.
Yeah, we're not stalking her. Don't worry.
But she was very open and honest about a guy named Psych. Psych, who is the morning show. They both did the morning show together. And she was very open and honest that it was his show. It was his show, even though her name was on it. It was called Psych and MJ in the Morning. And she was very openly and honest that she basically played second fiddle.
And she didn't feel great about that, but I mean,
when your name's on the show, what do you expect?
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Psych is has been there longer and is the music director there. So I get it. But I thought she brought a lot to the table. She's very entertaining. She's very what's the accent? I think Brooklyn accent.
Yeah, she's got that Long Island drawl,
which was hilarious hearing her answer some of the questions.
Yeah.
We also, I don't know if you pulled it in here, but she also talked about how, and her and I agreed on this, the whole taking TV personalities and turning them into syndicated radio.
That might be in the beginning, so I think that was I think that might have made it. I'm not sure.
And she gets it. We both agreed. Stop taking people like Ryan Seacrest, who he's maybe the one difference because he started in radio, but she made a good point, and I agreed with it, that it's all prepped. He's not doing like what we do on a podcast, or
It's not spontaneous.
he's literally iHeart, believe it or not, has what they call morning prep, which basically
Is exactly what it sounds like.
right. They have people who, besides producers, they have their a program that they use that basically generates morning show material content. It's those stupid generic questions sometimes you hear like Elvis Duran talk about, or just all these weird questions. I don't know.
Producers came up with that.
What?
The producers came up with that.
Not even that. Sometimes it's produced for them. I don't know. What random questions can you think of that would be like in a morning show?
How's the weather?
Well, no, but I meant like top 5 such and such. Like they'll do that a lot.
So do you drive to work in a BMW, or do you have a Chrysler?
Actually, believe it or not, what type of car do you drive and what mileage does it get? I've heard stupid things like that before.
But that's not the only interview you did.
Right. So that's not the only interview. It's not the only interview I did. I radio nerded out part 2. Now, this one was a little closer to me because Jesse Addy was a coworker of mine in the same building at Cumulus.
So you're basically just it's basically just 10. There's a 10-minute section that's just basically the two of you just waxing nostalgic.
Right. And we talked about how the business is changing. When 94.7 Country left, or it was actually Nash FM at the time, left. And again, we're still talking about New York radio, so try to stay with me when I mention this. Excuse me. That Cumulus, New York was going through a very tough time. And they eventually sold Nash FM to Audacy. Well, Intercom and then Audacy. And Jesse was part of that move. And then after quite a while, Audacy decided, don't need that. Or at least they did that stupid HD2 thing with the station. You know what I mean, Nick?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Where basically you have to like turn that weird button in the car, which turns it to an HD2. And I'm like, and then he eventually was gone. And then I think he went back to Detroit because that's where I think he's from. And then this summer, all of a sudden, he resurfaced. And now he's doing fill-ins for WNEW here in New York.
Yeah.
So
but it was a great interview. So let's go to those interviews. Let's see what we got here.
Yeah, I mean, they're great interviews. Check them out. If you really want to understand the radio business, listen to these 2 interviews. They're not the full interviews. I spent a lot of time with both of them. So
we took the best parts.
So this is a snippet. So take a listen, and when we come back, Nick will bring you through more of the funny, not so funny, and sad parts of the year. So go take a listen to the interviews. We'll be back. I saw that, unfortunately, you were let go from BLI. Now, I'm assuming that was just the business, unfortunately, right?
Yeah, I mean, that day it wasn't, we called it kind of like there was a lot of us. It wasn't just me. If it was just me, that would have hurt way more. But yeah, it wasn't just me. There was a bunch of us. My own boss was let go that day. My PD. Also our weather guy who has been there forever was let go. And of course there were names across the United States where we had stations in Texas, Florida, Georgia, all these places, high up people that have been with the company for years or who've made names for themselves that were let go. Not that it made me feel better, but it definitely wasn't targeted on me only, so it was rough. It was September 23rd, 2021 was definitely a day in the books for CMG.
No, I totally understand. And like I told you before we started, I've been in the radio business. You've been in the radio business, both in New York, tough markets. So if things are not going right, things don't always work out.
Right.
And I watched your Instagram video when you made the announcement. And I actually thought it was good, honest. and to the point, because some people in the radio business are not always honest and upfront, and sometimes they lie when they say things. And one quote I pulled out of that: "It's not personal. Don't get mad at anybody."
Yeah.
So,
well,
yeah.
I had reached out earlier that day to my boss at the time, and I said, listen, you know, I've been on the air there for about almost 7 years now, and we had listeners that I've never met face to face, but I talk to these people every morning. Like, they called in religiously. I could name them off right now. And you know, there were people that didn't call, but they listened to us every day. They were part of my day and I was part of their day. And, you know, when your routine is thrown off, you want to know why. And I just felt I owed it to people who listened to me, who gave me the opportunity to do what I love to do since I was, you know, that I've wanted to do since I was little. If they didn't listen to me, I wouldn't be able to do that. So I felt like I owed them something, you know, because I know when I used to listen to radio, if one of the DJs just vanished, you'd be like, what the hell? Like, they're part of my day. Now my day is off. You know, it's like, what do I do? You know, it's weird. It's weird that I was a part of the stranger's day, but I just felt like I remember that feeling, and I just felt that they needed to know in a respectful manner. Of course, I was upset. Of course, I was angry, because this is something that I've worked towards since I was 15 years old, and it was taken away like that. And I had no idea it was my last show. So that was really the worst part of it. But they just needed a little bit of you know, I'm okay. Don't be mad at them. This just happens. It's corporate America. People get laid off all the time. And it was only a matter of time before in this industry I got laid off. So you could say that I made it in radio.
No, I totally agree, because this business is probably one of the more volatile businesses out there.
It's not for the weak, I'll tell you that much.
Now, you talked about from age 15. What got you into radio? Was there a certain thing? Were you listening to the radio and said, I had the aha moment? What was it?
Well, when I was 5, I'll never forget this. I was driving over, well, I wasn't driving. My dad was driving over the outer bridge in Jersey. And I was singing a Mariah Carey song. I knew every word to every song on the radio when I was little. And my dad said to my mom, she's going to work in music one day. And to me, it was like, whatever. I was 5. I just heard it. I didn't really think of anything, you know? And as I got older, I, you know, went through that phase where I wanted to be Britney Spears and I wanted to be a singer, but I was not a singer. I tried playing trumpet. I tried playing drums. I tried playing piano. I am not an instrumental person. So I was obsessed with pop culture. I loved reading magazines. I loved, you know, watching MTV and VH1 and all these things when they actually played artists and stuff. And when I found out, when I got old enough to realize, like, wow, people get paid to talk about this. Like, that's what I want to do. If I can't sing it, I can't play it, I can't write it. I want to at least be surrounded by it. So yeah, I mean, when I was around 15, 16, one of my sister's best friends, older sister, had reached out to me and said, listen, I know you're going to college in a year. We have an internship program. She worked at KTU 103.5 in the city. And she said, you know, I can get you in. And I was like, whoa, what? And within, you know, the next year, I was interning for some of the biggest names in New York, like Diane Pryor, Vic Latino, Broadway Billy. And it was like a dream come true. I remember walking into the studio and just being like, can I curse? Can I curse on this or no?
Yes.
Like, how the fuck did I get here? Like, is this real? Because you listen to these people, and now I got to put like a face with this name that I listened to. And, you know, the internet wasn't really big back then. So, it was surreal to me, and they loved me, and I worked my ass off. I mean, it was an internship, so you choose your hours, basically. It was like, we need you 2 days a week. You're not going to get paid. And I was like, no, I want to be here 5 days a week, and I don't want you to pay me. I don't care. Just give me experience. And I was there from 9 a.m. until like midnight, because I stayed later than my shift ended. And I didn't get paid $1. And I worked on the weekends at a deli just to pay for my parking and my gas. And I just would sit in the studio and watch and learn. And eventually they saw that. And there's the K2 party crew, which was the street team, and they had a meeting at the end of every semester. Now, I wasn't a promotions intern, but I got to know everybody on the street team in promotions, and they had their own set of interns. And one of them stood up in the meeting, which is a story that I was told after I got hired. And they were like, "We're all quitting if you don't hire Dana, the programming intern." And I was like, "Really?" They saw how hard I worked, and they wanted me on their team. And I wound up working there for about 5 years on the street team. And I just would stay after my events or go in early, and I would just sit in the studio, and I would be so annoying. And I would ask questions, and I would want to touch things, but they always would say, "Do you want to get on the air?" And I would be like, No, I'm nervous. I don't want to do it. Because, it's that whole, like, they're professionals. You look up to them. And what if I mess up? What if I'm not good enough? And they, have this premeditate with this, of what I am, and I'm not good enough. So I never really went on the air with them. I was too scared, but I did question, and I did take in everything that they taught me.
I remember that.
Really winded answer. Sorry.
No, that's totally fine. I'm fascinated by it because when I was an intern, I interned at Sirius XM. I had the opportunity to be there, and that was
awesome.
a whole different experience being on the non-FCC regulated airwaves. Sure. And just there's a couple ways of getting on the air. Either it's you act doing something stupid and somehow you end up on the air as an intern, or like you said, you work as hard as you possibly can to get on the air. So there's a bunch of different ways to get in the radio business, and don't be discouraged by it if you don't if it doesn't happen after the first couple of years.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
What was I going to say?
It took me. Yeah. I got that internship in 2000, I think 3 or 4, I forgot. But I wasn't on the air until 2012 or 13, so it took me a while.
It's amazing how radio has changed because, like, when you're doing local morning radio, now they're taking shows like where you worked at Clear Channel, now iHeart. They're now tracking a lot of things and replacing a lot of local radio. So what are your thoughts on a lot of local radio disappearing for the Elvis Durans taking over?
I'm so glad you're asking this. I hate it. I think that it is the demise of radio. I think that it is the worst thing for people like me and yourself, who worked in radio, and now I'm out of work on the beach, they say, which is, I don't know why that's the term in radio. This is not, I'm relaxed as hell, but I'm also stressed the fuck out because I need a paycheck. But at the same time, it's like, you have all of these people that are so talented and have worked so hard, and you're taking the talent that you have already in-house and firing half of them so that they could save money. And I get it. This is corporate America. They're trying to save pennies and taking this one person who they're paying one salary to do 6 shows, and they're saving themselves 5 salaries off of that one person doing 6 shows. You know what I mean? So they're taking away opportunity for other people to save dollars. And like I said, I get it. But at the end of the day, morality kicks in to me. And it's like, well, what about the people that have worked for this? Not that person that is doing those 6 shows didn't work for it. They have, but they're also probably being underpaid. They're not making the salary that they should for 6 shows. That's not an easy task.
I mean, it's crazy because and from another company, Audacy, which was taking shows like Kane and Corey and putting them on in 7 or 8 markets.
Right. It's great for them because they're being heard everywhere. So, it's a positive for the person that stays, but like I said, they're not getting paid probably what they deserve. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, it's just, there's so many talented people out there that are just not getting the opportunity that they deserve. They're just not getting, nobody's even looking at us. They're not even trying to listen to us because that's another $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 that they'd have to spend Why would they when there's so much technology now? On top of Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, all these places, YouTube, where you can find the song that you want to listen to at the drop of a dime. And this new generation, I feel like, I don't know how old you are. I'm going to be 36.
I'm 28. Yeah.
Okay. So I feel like your generation, you're on the cusp. You're with me, but you're also on the cusp of the younger. This generation is so, I want it now, instant gratification, where I would sit in front of my radio and wait for an NSYNC song to come on the top 9 at 9 on Z100.
I remember those days.
You know, and I couldn't get that song in the drop of a dime unless I went out and bought the CD. So, you know, if you are somebody who's really tech savvy and somebody who's really into Instagram, TikTok, where you can find all these new trends and all these new songs on these trends, you're gonna find it. You have so many means to, and radio is just not. These kids don't need to look. They don't need to listen to the radio for their news. They don't need to listen to the radio for the weather. We can get it right here in an instant, you know? Yep. So that's really, there's two things that are killing local radio: the internet and the smartphone, and the fact that these corporate companies want to save every single penny because they're letting go of local talent and they're soundtracking people from other states. And that's that.
I always thought you were in your element, was the term I like to tell people. Like you knew your space, you knew your category, you knew your interviews were great. So I always felt like you were in your element. How would you describe your style of radio?
That's a great question. I think that for me, having both sides of the equation from a young age of being in a studio and seeing someone on the radio and literally what it sounds like when a DJ is on the radio, which is mean, you know, music radio or any radio. Like there's, you know, if you're an AM and there's bumper music coming on, all of a sudden you turn the mic on and the speakers go off. You know, just understanding like how it feels, how it sounds. And then obviously the real life experience of just being a listener. And, you know, I think about my mom and driving around the station she listens to. And so I just wanted to be and do want to be the guy that people are, you know, for me, afternoon drive has kind of been a sweet spot. That's the way it's worked out for me. But, you know, anytime you're on the radio, for me in that moment of like, oh, I just had a long day at work. Things didn't go, you know, when I get home, I got to be mom or dad or whatever it is. I have these 30 minutes where I get to zone out. And I just wanted to make that, you know, just better, you know, like, Dan Harris that does that podcast at 10%. I just want to make things like 10% better. You know, I'm not going to change your life playing these songs, but a joke. And so for me, that's kind of been my sweet spot. It did enough radio and I think tried enough things. I've done mornings and worked in different formats. And so by the time I got to New York, I'd realized, okay, this is what I do pretty well. Not to say like I'm going to stay in my lane, but I kind of knew my lane, you know, and it's your comment about, I can't remember how you worded it, but.
Oh, in your element?
In my element, yeah. And I think for me, it's just like understanding what I'm trying to achieve with the listener, which helps a lot because there wasn't a lot of trial and error for me when I showed up here. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. And this is what I do.
Now, you were always afternoon drive once you got to New York, or were you in different times when you got here?
No, I did afternoons my last 3. So here, then Detroit and Greenville, South Carolina as well. And then I did mornings twice in Lansing, failed miserably. And for whatever reason, still working that through in my head. And actually when I worked in Atlanta, I was the fill-in guy. So I was like, you know, somebody's taking vacation or gets sick, or I'd be that guy. You know, I could be at the station literally in 30 minutes. So I did all those shifts. So and old enough to be the overnight guy, you know, to so I did a lot of radio at 3 a.m, which helped immensely, you know, having a little bit of room and have a program director. His name was Garrett Michaels, who's in San Diego now, who'd actually like air check me, like the guy that was on at 3 a.m, which was awesome. So yeah, I just had a lot of opportunity to do a lot of different shifts. See,
what people don't realize, I'm glad you brought up that 3 a.m. Shift. when I worked at ABC, I did 2 years of a 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. where I literally felt like the most grumpiest person in the world for 2 years. So I guess, can you explain to people that, and a lot of people have said this to me, you just push buttons on a radio board. I'm sure people have said this to you a million times. They've said it to me a million times. What do you tell people when they say to you, or say something in the equation of, you just hit buttons on a board?
I really haven't had a lot of people say that to me, I guess, because I don't know if they're trying to win tickets from me or something. But, so they're generally like being nice. But no, I think there is a lot of, because I worked at stations where a lot of traffic would go in front of the studio. So say it was like the studio's facing the lobby. And ultimately, your job is to make it look easy, to make it look effortless. Like, it's not going to be good radio if you're in there like frenzied all the time. So along with that comes people that just kind of see you like chilling out, and, people be in the studio talking to you about something. And all of a sudden you're just like, hold on one second. And you turn the mic on, and then you talk after a song into commercials, and then you turn it off, and they're like, well, I couldn't, what did you just do? Like, I just stopped the conversation. I was like, well, what I didn't actually listen to you for the last 2 minutes, what you were saying. I was thinking what I was going to say on the radio. So I think that's part of it. I actually think what's interesting is like what you're doing right now. And I see, it's so interesting to see like every celebrity in the world have this kind of like a setup with a microphone in their house. So it's sort of demystified it in a way. I mean, I have some headphones over here, but I was like, just the concept of seeing somebody wearing headphones, talking to a microphone, you were just like so cool. And now like everyone in America has a set of headphones and a professional microphone. So it kind of hurts me a little bit, because I'm like, oh my gosh, it used to be so cool. And now it's like, oh, do you do everybody's got that set up. So
I know, it's crazy. I mean, COVID has changed everything. We'll get to COVID in a little bit, because I have questions about that. But I want to talk about your backstage videos, like at the ACM Awards and all those different opportunities you've gotten to be a part of. Can you talk about those? Because I thought those were great. I saw some of your videos on YouTube.
Thank you. Yeah, though those are interesting, because country music, this is the only country station I've ever worked at here in New York, and the country artists are so accessible and so friendly, and much more than any other format. Other than maybe sports, because they have to like the athletes have to talk to the media where they get fined after a game. But so what they would do, Radio Row type of things, literally a row of radio stations that the artists would come through. And for radio, if you did that for other formats, you might get the C-level artists, D-level artists. You literally have the biggest names in country music that are talking to radio stations, not just in New York, but all over the country. So those are interesting. If you ever, get to watch a bunch of those interviews, I mean, I would sit there and do 30 to 40 interviews in a day, generally between 3 and 5 minutes. And it's like a muscle, like you stretch after a while. Like the first 2 or 3 are a little stiff. And then you get into this sweet spot of like interviews 10 through about 20. And then you're tired. Then the last 10 are like, I don't even know who we talked to, or, literally people are like, the handlers are coming around and be like, have you talked to this person? Have you talked to Dustin Lynch? I'm like, no. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I talked to them 3 hours ago. Like, you can't even remember. So, but yeah, though that to me is like almost like a radio sort of boot. Like I wish everyone could experience it, whether it's a TV junket, or sports related, but just to be in that atmosphere of having to do, 30 plus interviews in a day. It's pretty crazy.
I mean, then you end up with one of those moments with Blake Shelton, which I thought was hilarious in a lot of ways, where I couldn't tell if you were confused by what he was doing or if it was just one of those Blake Shelton moments, right?
I think he was having fun that day, and I think he, to peel the curtain back. I think he'd already talked to a few other. That was kind of a shtick for the day, probably just to keep himself interested in what was going on. But at the end of it, he's like, I love you, man, and like a heartfelt, I love, like, oh, and and then called me out for not saying it back. And so it's interesting too that that interview in that moment, because I feel, and as I've interviewed more and more people and gone back and watched things, how many interesting things people say in the last sentence of like their paragraph, you know, as they're just like yada 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 yada. And you know, that was really the thing that led me to, you know, therapy after my sister died. Now that'll be like the last thing they'll say in your mind, and you know this, you're already sort of like thinking about your next question. So I've tried to and I think about that incident with Blake, you know, staying engaged, because at that point when he says that, not to talk about, you know, inside baseball, but when he's saying that, I'm already, the handler's like rap, they're giving you the rap signal. I'm already like got the tagline for the ACM awards in my head, and and when something like that comes out, I've tried to, even since that moment, get better at like staying engaged as long as I can.
Welcome back to part 1 of the best of Beyond the Bench for 2022. So we also had a lot of controversy we were talking about, and the this next batch of particular clips we're talking about involves the Don't Say Gay bill controversy that rocked Florida and involved Disney for some strange reason. Now this bill was again the it involved classifying schools in Florida classifying LGBTQ oriented material as sexually indecent, and therefore
Right, the health classes.
and banning sex ed for K to 3.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
this caused a massive problem. I remember when we did this whole thing, controversies all over the place. First of all, our asshole governor in Florida, our favorite asshole governor in Florida.
I mean, to that extent now, but I mean, you know, back then he was just the asshole governor of Florida. Now, in the wake of the midterms last month, he could be the Republican candidate for president in 2024.
Oh,
So
why'd you have to
that's time
speak
to
that
change.
into existence? Come on.
He could very well be, but this clip itself is more about Disney's response to the Don't Say Gay bill and the walkout that the Disney employees and
Everybody
park staff,
almost. About 90% walked out, at least.
about 90% walked out, and a lot of them roasted the then current CEO Bob Chapek for his lack of response. And by the way,
Well,
he ended up leaving, and Bob Iger came back. But
I was going to say, it's kind of ironic you brought up Chapek, because he took over when Iger retired. Now, the reason I say it that way is I don't think he was ever gone. Even though they said he was retired, I think he was somewhere lurking in the background somewhere.
He took one hand off the stranglehold.
Right. And then we find out, because we try to give you some of the updates of these stories as we're doing this. So Iger is back. ESPN really needed him back. That's part of the Disney umbrella.
Disney needed him back. The parks needed him back because Chapek
was sinking the company.
Basically ran the parks into the ground. And when you fuck with the Disney real estate, no, that can't happen. So take what you know, the knowledge that you know right now, and apply it to what we did back in March.
It was crazy. That's all I'll say.
It becomes funnier.
It becomes funnier, but at the time it was crazy.
At the time it was crazy because we didn't know what was going to happen next. Who was going to blink? And it turns out nobody blinked.
I mean, the best thing I could say is who was slapping who.
Funny you should talk about that, because the next segment we have is Slapgate. That means that Will Smith took the stage at the Oscars to slap the shit out of Chris Rock because of a joke that he made about Jada Pinkett Smith. Now if
there was a lot of controversies with this. Was it staged? Was it not? Kyle Hershon,
charge him with assault or something.
Kyle Hershon, who does content with us on the network, like he's worked in TV, and like he said, part of it had to do with the delay they had on TV. Also, that outside the country they caught more than what we saw in the U.S.
Yeah.
And first of all, the way that Will Smith, like a boss, literally just got up off his chair.
Got up, just bitch slapped him, and then just sat back down as if nothing happened.
And by the way, I think he got a 10-year ban from.
He got a 10-year ban from attending any Academy events. And proper postscript to this is he's still apologizing for it because he's doing a press for a movie he's doing for Apple TV. So
Right.
this dominated the discourse and for about a month and change afterwards. So we of course had to throw in our 2 cents.
Right. This story was bizarre. I just remember like the internet broke the night that this whole thing was going on. I wasn't even watching the awards because I could give 2 shits about the awards, to be honest. And then Twitter broke. And no, we're not talking about that yet. We're not talking about Twitter breaking yet. I'm literally talking about just like the whole world like decided to have a coronary, as you would say.
So let's go to those clips and you watch those and then we'll come back, okay?
Well, you still have one more. Still have you have the Twitter in here. Too.
So speaking of which, it's funny you should mention that because the saga of Elon Musk. Now, of course, this has taken all year because
this is right at the beginning of it.
This was right at the beginning of it. This was the first stirrings that Elon Musk was looking to take over Twitter and run it into the ground. Of course, we didn't know what he was going to do because, again, this is the beginning of a multi-month saga with this show, and we're still not done covering it for the year.
By the way, this was literally at the beginning. I think part of it was the rumors that he was buying Twitter and that he was going to spend $44 billion, which he eventually ended up doing because because the deal that he had was that if he didn't go through, he would have lost $1 billion anyway. Not that that's pocket change to him.
Of course, if the future versions of us had intruded on the past versions of us when we were recording that segment and filled them in on everything that happened afterwards, we would have
thought the future us would have been lying.
I would have thought you've been lying, but you know what? It's something that has to be seen to be believed. So you know what? Take a look at it and see if you believe it.
Yeah, take a look, and when we come back, we'll finish. Well, we'll give you the last clips, and then we'll finish it up. More of the unfortunate stuff, news. I know we don't like ending on sad news, but we won't. So go take a look at the clips. We'll be right back.
Here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't think there's been a lot of really explaining from a lot of stories on this as to what the bill actually is and why it's so dangerous. It's dangerous because it's so broad. And by that, I mean, making sure that children aren't exposed to any kind of what they term inappropriate behavior or anything that could be deemed, harmful to children from or banning sex ed from K to 3. But here's the thing. Are they actually teaching 3rd graders sex ed? Because they're not. I don't think they are.
I don't think that's really appropriate for that age, to be quite honest.
Yes, and I don't think that's actually a thing. It really seems like they created a solution in search of a problem.
Well, there's one thing I need to ask, and I'm going to ask you, Mr. Journalist.
And it's so broad. They can pretty much say, you can't actually discuss any issues relating to trans rights or even transgender people or even gay, issues affecting the gay community without.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
So I need you to put the journalism hat on for me to give me an exact respectable answer to this. So
it's a metaphorical hat, but I got you.
Yeah. So they say that when you're 3, 4, 5 years old, that you have the feelings of being transgender, that you're not what you want to be, or that you're gay or lesbian or straight. I'm not trying to make controversy. I'm just trying to say that that's what they tell us, that they're saying they're finding out younger and younger and younger that they know what they are.
So, and the question to me is,
how does this, if I feel like this is kind of the same thing, like they're assuming something rather than doing the homework and the facts to figure out, is this really true?
Well, you have to understand something. I think it's more, and of course I'm no gender studies expert, nor am I trans or gay myself, but the most what I understand at this point is, I think at that age or around that age, you start to notice that something is a little bit different about you. Now, those feelings it's not like you wake up, you wake up one day and when you're 5 years old and say, I'm going to be a girl now. It's not that.
And by the way, let me make something very clear. I'm not saying it's wrong, it's indifferent. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying you do what you want to do with your life. I just don't understand from time to time, like they make assumptions with this bill that in Florida, because Florida,
they make assumptions that 5-year-olds are just waking up and or leftist parents are indoctrinating their kids. It's like all of a sudden they put a dress on their 3-year-old boy saying you're a girl, but that's not how it happens.
That's not how it happens. It all has to do with thought process and what you feel comfortable with.
It's literally, you know what it is, and it becomes more if you have gender dysphoria, which is, you don't feel that you are the gender that you don't feel on the inside what you are on the outside.
That you grew up being.
You look in the mirror and you don't recognize the person staring back at you as yourself.
But the other issue now we have is Disney.
Yes. So, which leads me to my next point. So, Bob Chapek took over for Bob Iger as CEO of the Walt Disney Corporation in November of 2020. So Iger had a reputation as for standing up against these cockamamie, bullshit culture war bills that Ron DeSantis seemed to jam through for fundraising. Really, he's just trying to be Trump without the bad hairpiece, and. He because it happened with the trans bathroom bill, because it's always some kind of weird obsession.
Wait a minute, that's what I was going to ask you about too. This kind of has some feelings of North Carolina.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Disney spoke up and the bill died. So Bob Chapek comes in, and Bob Chapek, for some strange reason, thinks that he doesn't like the perception that Disney is too liberal, which is fucking ridiculous.
First of all, you're in the entertainment business.
You're in the entertainment business.
Who gives a fuck if you're
nobody who actually knows who actually matters thinks that Disney is too liberal. Yeah, and you know what? Most of those people are white supremacists. Do you really want to agree with them?
I heard a controversy, and I don't know if it was Disney or which company it was, that one of their movies that was coming out, they cut out a kissing scene.
Yeah, I think it might have been Beauty and the Beast.
It was a lesbian kissing scene, I think.
I can't remember. But which leads me to Chapek wasn't saying anything about this bill, and his official company-wide memo, was to, basically sit on the fence and say nothing. And the Disney employees did not.
I found it. It was Pixar.
I was going to get to that. So
it was Lightyear.
Yeah. So the Disney employees, the trans and LGBTQ plus community in working at Disney, and they seem to love working there. They seem to really love the job, but they got pissed off, and it's like, come on, take a stand here. You're better than this. So they didn't, or they're promising to pause all their political funding, because remember, Disney or Chapek made a substantial contribution to Ron DeSantis' campaign. Ron DeSantis, of course, being the governor of Florida, and of course one of the architects behind this bill. So they walk out. And they're staging a protest, and you know what? It's important. It's important because, look, as soon as you engage in these again, they're not trying to do any of this to have any sort of meaningful or make any sort of change that makes people's lives better. They're just engaging in a culture war in this proxy culture war bullshit, because they want to stick it to the liberals.
Yeah, but the issue that I have is, like we said, you're in the entertainment business. Why the hell would you get into the political side? You're affecting the business of the company. You're affecting people's livelihoods. Now you have people protesting outside your business, which is not a good look.
So you really should be siding with them and not fucking DeSantis, especially considering that Disney kind of has the state of Florida by the balls.
But that's what I'm saying, that these workers,
Yes.
like, and I'm looking at some of the statements. Hundreds of protesters march outside Disney's headquarters in Burbank, with some toting signs, hashtag Disney do better, and others chanting slogans such as say gay.
And this of course leads to what you were saying before, where Disney corporate has never really been very friendly. They've had the appearance of being quote unquote progressive, but it's always been surface level stuff. Like you said, they cut out. Pixar was reportedly forced to cut out a same-sex kiss scene in
Lightyear,
which hasn't come out yet. So,
which I heard they might be putting back in.
Which, of course, the controversy is forcing them to move. So
But-
it sucks, but it seems like the only way to get them to move is light a fire under their asses.
We're missing something else here. Disney themselves, the entertainment side, is not the only one that's dealt with political issues. ESPN had to put rules in place because they were too political on the air. They were told to stop with the political nonsense because people were getting pissed off.
But again, my point is it's not in good faith that they're engaging, because it's not necessarily that they don't want to have politics taught at all. It's a certain politics that they disagree with that they don't want to have. Like if ESPN had, talked about the merits of the Trump administration and how great Donald Trump was, do you really think any of the people saying stick to spots would be complaining? No, I don't think so.
I don't know, but at the same,
it's not. I don't want to hear politics. I don't want to hear your politics.
well, that's part
exactly
of it.
That's exactly it. It's not free speech. It's I want to be free to say what I want, and you can't say anything back to me.
Let me go full disclosure for a second. I didn't watch the Oscars because I'm tired of the political bullshit that goes on at any award show. But if you weren't on social media and you didn't see it, you're a nut.
Because essentially I did, although I was kind of flipping through it, kind of half paying attention to it. And I found that when I switched back to the Oscars, the mood in the room was kind of tense. And I noticed that everything Twitter was just blowing up. And I didn't realize, wait a minute, when I first saw what happened, I think it was the Japanese feed of the telecast.
It was Japanese and Australian.
And Australia. So I'm like, wait, that has to be a bit. I saw him strut up to the stage and smack Chris Rock across the. Now, I originally thought it was a bit because, again, the Oscars are known for having bits and getting, getting the celebrities in on it. I mean,
wait a minute.
Schumer did the exact same thing with Kirsten Dunst.
Wait a minute.
On the show.
The biggest bit of all time was for the last 2 years they didn't even have a host. That was a major bit.
That was a major bit. However, this was not fake. This was absolutely. He absolutely took offense. He absolutely got very pissed off at what. Well, first of all,
let's give
a little context here.
Wait, so if you watch some of the angles of what goes down, so Chris Rock. First of all, the awards shows need to know right off the bat. What do you think is going to happen when a comedian goes up on stage during an awards show? I'm sorry, but the Oscars kind of asked for this partially, and
I mean they did. However, you know what? You finish your point, and then I'll make.
My point is, so Chris Rock goes up. I think Chris Rock is one of the funniest comedians of all time.
Oh, that's not in dispute.
And was the joke a lot out of taste? Absolutely, it was a lot out of taste. You don't make fun of someone who has alopecia. And now, I wait a minute. I understand that the G.I. Jane reference because who was the one that played it in the original?
Demi Moore.
Okay, so she shaved her head
She shaved her head.
But
whether Chris Rock was aware of it or not,
no, he was aware. Come on.
See, I don't condone what Will Smith did,
I don't condone,
but I do understand it. I get it.
but I don't condone the joke either. I think the joke was a little inappropriate too.
The joke was a little tasteless. The joke was a little. I mean, read the friggin' room, Chris. And it's apparently we found out afterwards that joke was not in the script. That was Chris basically ad-libbing a bit.
That's what comedians do.
So Will Smith laughs. You could see him do the kind of nervous laughter. It's like,
And then
no. Belly laughing at the joke.
It wasn't a nervous laugh. He laughed.
No, it was. You could tell it was a nervous laugh, though.
No, but Nick, partially the angle, if you look, he actually is laughing. And then when she makes that disgust face, that's when it changed.
And I don't blame her for making that. I don't blame her for making that face at all. And look, and he walks up and slaps Chris Rock across the face, and then goes off to his seat. As Chris Rock, of course, ever the consummate professional, doesn't even break his concentration.
No, he did.
I think Will Smith just beat the shit out of me. And then you could hear during the Australian broadcast and the Japanese broadcast,
Because they don't have to censor.
Will Smith actually shouted from his seat, "Keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth."
Now, first of all, I was talking to Kyle, who does the Her Show for us on this podcast network. He was working in TV, still be working in TV. I found out from him that all award shows are technically on 30-second delay.
They are, which means if anything goes wrong, if anybody pulls a Janet Jackson and has a wardrobe malfunction or says something untowards, or I don't know, one of the light fixtures collapses or something, you can easily cut away or blur anything that's.
The delay wasn't enough, though.
The delay wasn't enough. I mean, you could tell what he was saying because the camera was on him, and it doesn't really take a lip read to see that he was saying, "Keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth."
Well, he was screaming. You could hear that.
He was screaming. You could absolutely hear that.
But where's the security, though?
See, here's the thing. Apparently, we found out later, I think it was yesterday, actually, that they were thinking about removing him from the building.
They couldn't do that. The reason they couldn't do that is because he was up for Best Actor?
He was up for Best Actor.
Which he won, by the way.
He won. Which means which was really one of the most awkward acceptance speeches I've ever seen.
Wait a minute.
You would have think it's apology/acceptance speech.
Wait a minute. Not just one of the most awkward of all time, the worst of all time.
I would have expected Nick Castellanos to hit a home run, into the back row just to make sure.
Well, by the way, that happened to him again in spring training.
It did. And look, I don't think because the what made Twitter explode. And it still turbocharges the discourse.
The bitch slap from hell is what made it go viral.
But if there are people saying, "Oh, you can't condone violence. It was assault." No
one is condoning the violence.
No one is condoning the violence, least of all him, because he did. He did issue an apology statement.
Yeah, but that doesn't make it better.
Doesn't make it better. But again, just to see that he understands that what he did was wrong. However,
it makes me wonder, though, and I'll let you make the statement you're about to make. It makes me wonder, though, if they were doing it for ratings. Because if you look at the ratings spike after, they were at like 17 or 18 million when they were at 9.
and then they spiked really big.
So the Academy, first of all, is a bunch of bullshit artists, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
And I just...
yeah, go ahead.
It's bad. And you know what? It didn't help that you have 3 political comedians / actresses hosting it.
Who are you referring to? Are you referring to Chris Rock or?
No, I'm referring to the hosts as well. They started off the fucking show with making a joke about the gay bill in Florida.
I mean, again,
that was out of poor taste.
A lot of this, a lot of the humor is enough to rib them, but not enough to really hit them where it hurts.
Can someone cancel Amy Schumer while we're at it?
They tried to because they didn't think that because they thought that she was actually insulting Kirsten Dunst by referring to her as a seat filler.
And by the way,
however, that was a bit. She told Kristen she was going to do that.
First one is musking up $43 billion to buy Twitter. We're talking about Elon Musk.
Elon Musk, the man who believes that he is Tony Stark but is actually Lex Luthor with a wig on, is this story started that he was going to buy. We actually reported on that he was going to buy 9% of
9.2 to be exact.
9.2% of the stock of Twitter, which would make him its highest stakeholder. And he was talking about all these things that he wanted to do, all the things that he wanted to make them do. However, it comes out within the last 12 hours.
Let's just say it happened quickly.
It happened pretty quickly, yes. So it said, I'm sorry that it's making me choke, but he tweeted out that he made an offer to the Twitter board of executives to buy the company for $43 billion. Now, Twitter is a publicly traded company, so what he would be doing is taking it private again.
Great.
And ladies and gentlemen, as of this recording, they just apparently finished a Twitter stakeholders meeting, for the largest stakeholders meeting, to talk about this offer that they have, and apparently they are telling him to go shove it.
Well, so here's the problem. If they tell him to go shove it, the stock is going to crash not crash, let me be careful with my words. It's going to tank by 20%.
Yeah, but my question is, what was the stock doing in reaction to him, potentially exploring to buy the deal?
Well, he already bought, so I think
No, he didn't buy the company yet.
No, he bought 9.2%. He is the highest stakeholder, which is a little scary considering Twitter is a big company and 9.2% is the highest stakeholder.
Yeah, and he wanted to be a board executive, but apparently they wouldn't let him, or he changed his mind.
So what happened was they were getting ready to do it, and I forgot who the CEO is, but they
Jack
were
Dorsey.
Yeah, no. There's another one that runs the board, but not important.
I'll look it up.
But at the same time, they were like going back and forth. Do we want Elon Musk on the board? He's going to be a pain in the ass. He's going to be a headache. And then I think Elon basically came out and said, I'm shoving your board position up your you-know-what.
Yeah,
and
Parag Agrawal is the
that guy. Yes.
The CEO of Twitter. And he basically, I'm sure that man has had to put up with Elon Musk's temper tantrums. I mean, far more than any person who's not married to Elon Musk should. So that being the case, ladies and gentlemen, all of this is about. They're laughing at me on Twitter. You can't laugh at me. I'll buy you.
Well, I hate when billionaires do that. Like if they either getting laughed at or they don't like something, they're just like, "Hey, I bought you. Now you can't do anything to me."
Yeah, it is because look, ladies and gentlemen, regardless of what you may think of Elon Musk, if you love him or you hate him or you're in between, you have to agree that this is a waste of time for a man who is worth who is worth as much money as he is.
He could buy and sell the two of us if he wants.
He's a multi-billionaire. He could buy and sell the entire population of the continental United States 7 times over. So don't tell me that this is a better use of your time. So apparently all he wants to do is just shit post on Twitter. You know what it's like?
No, I get it.
I don't know if you've ever been around the Reddit sub communities.
I have.
The scummier ones.
It's like slogging through the world of Twitter of people who are eggs and have no pictures.
It's basically Twitter but angrier. So, which is saying something.
But this whole thing, and you're gonna hate when I play this, but Elon Musk makes me think of this.
REL.
That he needs to relax, or he
No.
reminds you of Aaron Rodgers?
No, he reminds me of Aaron Rodgers because basically Elon Musk says, "Hey, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'm going to do whatever the fuck I want, and you're not going to tell me what to do."
But again, this man could do whatever he wants, so why do this?
No, but I'm saying is
Are you that thin-skinned that you can't stand it when people make fun of your hairline or make memes? Making
Aaron
fun of you?
Rodgers is the same way. And people are making fun of him for his feet.
Aaron Rodgers doesn't. Well, he's not a major shareholder in Tesla. Well, I don't know what his stock. I don't know what his stock is, but still.
What, Elon Musk? Tesla.
Yeah, but I don't know how much Aaron Rodgers owns of what. But
Trust me, Aaron Rodgers is doing just fine.
yeah, but he has a day. He has a day. He has a day job, and supposedly Elon Musk does too. But apparently, looking at these headlines, he doesn't. He
Wait
doesn't
a
have
minute.
anything else to do.
Didn't Elon Musk, was he the guy that tried to name his kid like after a calculation equation or something?
He did do that.
Isn't that like they were saying that like that's not legal or something, like you can't do that?
Apparently it's legal. You technically have the ability to name your child whatever the hell you want.
Which is scary. I feel bad for that child though when they grow up.
Oh my god. I also feel bad for the teachers that have to call his name out and take an attendance.
Hi, E equals MC squared.
Huh? Oh yeah, here. But ladies and gentlemen, this man is, first of all, I'm sick and tired of regarding him as some kind of genius. Even
He's
though
not.
he didn't even start Tesla. He just
You know
bought them
what?
out.
People make this confusion all the time that Elon Musk started Tesla. He did not. People need to wake up.
He's a billionaire because his parents were loaded and owned a diamond mine in South Africa. You didn't know that?
No, I did know that. I'm just saying people are so stupid that they don't realize it.
Honestly, he is the world's first shit posting billionaire.
So he's Trump.
And I would say
It's the same thing.
Yeah, kinda.
His father was the billionaire, and he gave Trump, his son, the money.
He's Trump with less fascist inclinations, and I don't know which is worse. I mean, I wouldn't want to see the results of President Elon Musk. Oh my
God! Why would you say that? Now he's going to do it.
I conjured it into existence, didn't I? Oh,
Yes, you did. Why would you?
God.
No, why?
I hate you. Get the out of here.
You know what? The bar is so low at this point. I'm surprised they don't elect the fucking toaster.
Shh! You gave Elon Musk ideas.
No, he could just buy the White House.
Oh God! Don't say that. Now
the laws of finders keepers. That means I'm the president. So yeah.
You just gave him ideas. Way to go.
God, and all of this is because he's so thin-skinned. Welcome back to the best of Beyond the Bench for 2022. We've got the last bit of last couple segments here, and unfortunately, one of the events that we did have to cover in late May, was the school shooting in Uvalde School District in Texas, and this was probably one of the toughest segments to record, because everything was still. Again, we were recording this segment at a time where everything was still coming in.
Oh, it was fresh.
Yeah, all the information that was still coming in and it got worse because we learned the full extent of what the cops did, or more accurately, what the cops didn't do. And
the cops got in trouble. The head of the police was either he resigned.
He resigned. It was more of a "you can't fire me, I quit" kind of thing.
And also, some of the video when they're inside the school, one of them using the soap dispenser thing on the wall.
It's despicable stuff. But we're not reacting to that in this clip. We are reacting to the raw,
emotion,
the raw emotion of the moment. And believe me, I mean, I don't want to, I don't want to be too inside baseball, but these segments are really, really, really difficult to.
And by the way, this was kind of, I hate to say this, but a foreshadowing to a lot of other shitty situations at schools that happened over the year. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, the shooting in Buffalo. You had what happened?
oh well, that's outside of schools, but there was a few other school incidents. I think there was one in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. There was, it just, it makes you like,
Of course, we're only just talking about it. That we're not comparing ourselves to
no,
any of the families affected at all.
no. But my point is that unfortunately, it kind of foreshadowed the year of school shootings and massive shootings at parades, and like it just was an unfortunate circumstance to what the year was going to be. And then you have the other story, Johnny Depp, Amber Heard. I guess we could say that's kind of a little more funnier in aspect.
It's funny in that everybody in the world seemed to fall back in love with Johnny Depp for some reason, even though the man probably slicks his hair back from the grease from his own personality.
Ugh.
So the man.
Well, Disney almost gave him a fortune almost again.
Oh, not no more.
I mean, did you see? Remember we talked about the amount of money he was supposedly going to get for Disney to do another Pirates of the Caribbean?
I think it was something like $25 million.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think it might have been closer to 30, but not that we're counting.
But we're reacting to the verdict in the defamation trial that Amber Heard was liable to pay the damages that Johnny Depp was suing for.
We spent weeks on this.
Weeks about that, and I didn't like that. I didn't like that verdict at all. I thought it was something that was going to set back the cause of, I don't want to say
like defamation. You mean?
I don't want to say set a bad precedent for defamation cases, which is something that is very out
there.
It's something that's integral to the craft that I learned, when I was in school. So I've got kind of a sore spot for that, but I still think that Amber Heard's name was kind of dragged through the mud when everybody just was willing to believe him wholeheartedly, and just slamming her as a meanie.
But apparently
the YouTube culture that started up around it was just absurd. The length
it was
to paint that woman as the second coming of Satan.
It was crazy.
It's absurd. I mean, you can see in the clip we're showing, I'm almost laughing at the absurdity of it.
I don't know if you put this in the clip, but the most bizarre thing of the whole incident when they're in court. Do you remember the whole shitting in the bed?
Mm-hmm. I think we did talk about that. So
we did talk about it. I don't know if it was in this clip,
this is the segment in full. So
oh my god. And I don't mean to laugh, but that whole thing was ridiculous. Well, she shits in the bed.
It's absurd. It really is. But you know what? What better note to close out January?
We'll close these clips, and then when we come back, we'll wrap it all up, and then we'll get you ready for part 2 on New Year's Eve. So go check the clips out. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up for you, and we'll preview a little bit of what's coming up in part 2. So there was a Texas school shooting and Uvalde, Texas, at the Robb Elementary School. And what day did this officially take place?
This took place on Tuesday.
Okay, so this news comes down. I think it was an 18-year-old male gunman who somehow, well, I shouldn't say somehow, because most schools have public open entrances, which is confusing to me. But
he had 2 AR-15 style rifles that he had just recently bought for his 18th birthday, and he had shot his grandmother. He shot and wounded his grandmother after an argument. Then stole her truck and drove to the school, ditched it, and then barricaded himself into the school itself and killed 19 students and 2 teachers. Most of the victims are 2nd to 4th graders, so that makes this absolutely horrifying. And I know we're about 10 years out from Sandy Hook, and again, this happens again. So
it's crazy. This is crazy. The amount of times this has happened.
It's not crazy. The word you're looking for is infuriating.
Well, infuriating, but I'm just tired of this. Like, and I'm going to get into in a minute or so, like why I feel very sentimental about this. But at the same time, we have HR 8, which is the document that's supposed to do national background checks.
Background checks and a red flag law.
And it's sitting in the Senate, at least from what I understand.
It has been sitting in the Senate collecting dust for about 2 years. And in the wake of this happening again, literally less than about 10 days after another mass shooting where 10 people, mostly
you talking about Buffalo?
In Buffalo, were shot at a supermarket by a white supremacist terrorist. And we come to this point again. It seems, I really hate to say this, but this seems like a cycle where this happens, people die, people are outraged, they're heartbroken, and yet nothing happens. Nothing happens to change it. And I've always said, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome.
And you know what? There's something I want to bring up as well, because people keep saying, "Oh, our condolences, our condolences." How many times can we give condolences if you're just going to repeat the same process over and over and over again?
In fact, I'll go one further. Condolences and thoughts and prayers mean absolute dick. 100%
They don't
dick.
mean anything.
They mean nothing. And what is it that the Bible says? Prayer without action itself is nothing. And again, I hate that I have to keep hammering this point home, but why was this kid, this 18-year-old, able to buy two? Why was anybody able to buy those kinds of weapons? Because every time in a mass shooting scenario like this, there's one common denominator. The one type of weapon that they all use, the AR-15 style rifle. Now, missed me with the whole hunting bullshit and Second Amendment bullshit, because, again, that is a weapon of war, not for hunting.
I mean, I get it, but I think I get why people are upset and emotional. Like, this story made national rounds, and I forgot to put it in here. We're going to do it on Saturday. But Steve Kerr, the Golden State Warriors coach, and I don't blame him. Usually, and you know me well, Nick, I don't like when public figures talk politics at a press conference because it leads to a lot of controversy. In this case, I get it. I totally get it, because these are kids.
These are kids, and again, once we decided as collectively, as a nation, that killing kids was a-okay, that fight was already lost. Because honestly, how many times do we have to keep going through the same thing before an anvil falls on a collective fucking asses and finally gets something done?
Actually, one of our new interns, I forgot to mention that as well. We have new interns that we like, and we're starting to get them in the mix with all our shows. Actually,
welcome them to the Empty the Bench podcast network family.
Yeah, and one of them just dropped a note to us saying that I heard it also took place in the same town that Matthew McConaughey is from. There was a quote from the Houston Public Media post, quote, "Action must be taken so that no parent has to experience what the parents in Uvalde and the others before have endured."
And absolutely, I agree. But you know what? At a certain point, excuse my cynicism, but the fact that this happened, and the fact that the school district and the town of Uvalde itself is 73% Latino, which means that these mostly white, mostly over 70 and 80-year-old politicians aren't going to lift a finger to do anything to help these people.
Yeah, but wait a minute. It's not just this issue. It's any issue in the Senate.
It's really any issue, but again, my cynicism is again, you're already starting to see the wheels spin a bit, that they really don't care. And
well,
it's sickening. It really is.
No, you know what's frustrating, and I started to tell you this like as we were discussing. I have a 3-year-old nephew and a 1-year-old niece. You have what, a 1-year-old?
I have a 9-month-old niece and a 2.5, about to be 3 godson.
Like, this scares me that you can't walk into a school without worrying if it's going to get shut up.
and to have to think about that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but to have to think about that when you bring them to school, they might not come back.
Well, yeah, that's what I was thinking about. Like I was at dinner with my parents and my nephew and niece and my brother and sister-in-law, and I said, when I was sitting at the table, I literally said I was scared, like thinking about this, like when it happened, like because
and I don't want to be melodramatic, and I don't want to be flippant about these things, but the game, the calculus that you do in your head changes when you have people of that age in your family that you care about.
and like it's like you just said, do I have to worry now that when my niece and nephew go to school that something bad's going to happen?
Is it some asshole with a gun he shouldn't have is going to shoot up the school?
And you know what? And this might get tomatoes thrown at me, but I don't care. That people are saying, well, mental health. Well, you still had to make the choice to shoot the gun.
Exactly. But you know what? What again? I keep saying there's no reason why any civilian should have that weapon. There's no reason at all. And first of all, it's really a bipartisan failure because the fact that we have both Republicans and Democrats who just refuse to lift a finger to actually create any kind of meaningful gun reform, that 80% of the country, 80%, you can't get 80% of the country to agree on the grass being green. 80% of the country wants these common sense law reforms, but yet you have politicians from both sides of the aisle. Not everybody. Well, most Republicans, but they sit there with their thumbs jammed firmly up their asses and just waiting. What is that thing I'm sitting on?
I was going to say, and I don't want to dwell on this story forever, but my point is, this is not a Republican, a Democrat, a neutral issue. It's a country issue. It's a issue
of our survival.
Forget the politics.
What country do we want to live in? Do we want to live in a country where this happens regularly? Because we are the only country in the world where this happens with such regularity. Schools are not supposed to be war zones. Supermarkets are not supposed to be war zones.
Churches.
Movie theaters are not supposed to be war zones.
Churches.
Synagogues.
And by the
way,
and let's be upfront. We're not talking about religion. We're not talking about politics. We're just pointing out the places that this stuff happens in, unfortunately, in that regard. So forget the politics. Screw the politics. I could care less. It has to do with protecting people as a whole. That's really what it is.
It does. But you know what? Life is so cheap to so many people, and it's when you really don't care, when you have neither heart, a soul, nor a functioning brain, it's amazing the evil that you will let slide.
I mean, I heard Eric Adams, for most people, if you're listening in New York, Mayor Eric Adams was talking about locking the doors of the schools and that you would actually have to sign in from the outside and be admitted in. Now, I think that would obviously make it safer because if something were to happen, God forbid, I guess you can get to it quicker. But
of course, that's a band-aid on an impaling wound. But
right.
Again, baby steps, because apparently baby steps are the only steps forward we are capable of taking in this goddamn country.
Amber Heard has been found guilty of defamation in the trial of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. A lot of reactions are coming in now.
This is a late-breaking story in that at the time of this recording, we've only been aware of this for about, less than 10 minutes. So we've had to scramble a bit. Well, we knew this was coming down for the past hour or so. But, you know, like I told you before we met, I mean, before we met to join up to do the show, before we went live, this case was essentially a dead duck, meaning that as soon as the public opinion was turned against Amber Heard, she really didn't have a chance in hell because, again, this country, I've made my feelings very, very clear on this case, and I seem to be in the minority in that I think that both of them are fault, although Johnny Depp is definitely more at fault because, again, you still put your hands on a woman. You still did these things. That's not actually it. That's not actually in dispute
Okay,
here.
but you need to remember one thing. I told you the charges and the
Yes, I
defamation
understand. So
are two
essentially, the
separate
point of
things.
the case is you can't call me a piece of shit, even though I've been acting like a piece of shit.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right that he's an asshole and he's done a lot of fucked up things, but you can't take the defamation case and put it on top of the charges from the other case. It doesn't work like that. You
And
know that.
Amber Heard didn't need to be a perfect victim to write. She didn't need to be an innocent little cherub
Right.
to write that op-ed that she did was it a couple of years ago?
It was a couple of years ago, but yes, but at the same time, I agree with you. I'm tired of all these people who, if you go on YouTube, and we talked about this over the last couple of weeks on this show, people are looking for content to make views. That's what they do. Look at all the late night programs and what they're doing. Now that this is over, they have to find another lackey to attach themselves to.
Yes, they do. And at a certain, I hope I'm wrong about this. God, I hope I'm wrong about this. But I do think about everything you've seen over the past, at least in terms of YouTube and the kind of discourse that you've been seeing in online circles like social media, like in Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter, and even YouTube, the front page of YouTube. It's been alarmingly pro Johnny Depp, and that every video is, this body language expert proves that Amber Heard is a lion meanie,
You know what?
and she's got a bruised makeup artist, and she's just trying to destroy the career of innocent little fawn Johnny Depp.
Wait a minute. The makeup artist is a hack, okay? We know this. She wanted her claim to fame, her views on TV and digital platforms.
Yeah, and everybody on TikTok is now a body language expert, which is
it's not just
amazing
TikTok.
to me.
Wait a minute. It's not just that originally started on YouTube, where all the big time verified YouTube channels were basically coming out and saying, I'm going to watch the trial live. I'm going to make my opinion known. And when those channels that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers on it, their opinions are now making it out into the world of YouTube. YouTube should have said, we're not allowing this to go up on our platform.
Or at least, you're not seeing any pro Amber Heard stuff either to counterweight.
YouTube and the internet, I shouldn't have to say this to you because you and I have said this many times. The internet is a horrible place.
It is.
So
we make our living on the internet, but I do recognize that this is kind of a shitty place to be.
I mean, think about it. I mean, I don't think I heard one nice thing about Amber Heard this whole time during this trial.
Thing. Not one nice thing at all. And now everybody comes out and says she's terrible.
But at the same time,
what this is, no, go ahead.
But I was going to say at the same time, and you're not going to like my answer, but I think they got this case, the defamation case, right.
Technically, but it still sucks. It still sucks that we had to, that we're in this case, that the well has been so poisoned.
But here's
what it has been.
But here's the other thing. At the same time, even though he won the defamation case, he's never going to work again anyway.
I mean,
he's not. Because the court of public opinion, I'm sorry to steal a pun, but it's true.
But public opinion has shifted in his favor.
But who cares if he's so damaged as a human being that no one's going to want to work for him? There's stories of when he was doing the last Pirates of the Caribbean movie that he showed up late. He was not on time to do anything.
Fed lines through his earpiece and
right. So no one wants to work with him anyway. So what? He won $50 million. Big deal. Doesn't matter. He's not working anymore. And he has all this debt he's got to pay off.
The lasting effect of this is similar to what I saw. What everybody saw in 2014 with Gamergate, where it became just an excuse to go after women you don't like.
Well,
it was. I was there. I saw it. In the guise of, and this is the backlash to me too. This is absolutely the backlash. This is the opportunity that people will take, mostly men, to get back at every single woman who they thought did them wrong. This is white guys. This is guys' vengeance, because this is in the guise of just asking questions or just standing up for what's right. And no, it's actually horribly misogynistic.
Well,
that doesn't happen here.
You and I had a conversation on our sports show, Empty the Bench, the other night, about the Deshaun Watson case and how the women are being treated horribly.
Yeah.
And they're not being given a voice. And that these 23, well, it was 22, now 23 civil cases against Deshaun Watson. The court system is screwed up because they didn't even take the case seriously when they brought it into court.
No, they didn't. They were as eager as they were eager to get everything the hell over with.
And you know what? This is an interesting case too, because at least in the Deshaun Watson case, people were saying, oh, well, he's a celebrity, so he got off as an excuse against the women who are your average everyday people. And I don't mean that in a mean way. But in this case, civilians, thank you. But my point is, in this case, you have two celebrities.
Yeah.
So how do you handle it? There's no favoritism here.
There's no favoritism here, but God. And look, it's already trending on social media.
Well, as of our recording today, it's trending.
As of our recording, oh my God! If you're really sick of hearing about this, you may want to steer clear of any kind of social media for the next couple of days, ladies and gentlemen.
Well,
but
I'll tell you what's going to happen. Amber Heard, you're going to see the hashtags. It's already been going around on social media. Amber Heard is a bitch. Amber Heard is
a liar. Is a C word if they could get that chance to filter.
Well, Twitter wouldn't allow that, but I know what you mean. But the one that's going,
or they'll find ways to get around it because again, you're terrible people.
Well, you could technically hashtag anything on Twitter, but I'm talking about like when they put the trends out, they're not going to put that word in there. Like they're not going to do that. But my point is, you're going to see Amber Heard as a liar, Amber Heard defamation. You might see. You're going to see all those trending on social media, and social media is already a dumpster fire and basically digging a hole through the middle of the atmosphere. Now it's going to be even worse.
Like it's eating through our cultural discourse like acid. It is. You ever seen the movie Aliens?
Yes.
You know how the aliens bleed acid when you shoot them?
Yes. That's essentially what's happening here.
Essentially the same idea is at play here.
I don't know. This is an interesting. This is going to become a case study, right?
This is going to become a case study in really in the case of how much social media can sway public opinion, and I'm convinced, dead convinced.
I want to throw one more at you.
It had an effect here.
Did you see that they actually put tweets into evidence? That was the first time it's ever been done. Because wait a minute, because usually when you put stuff into evidence, it's physical evidence, right?
Yeah.
So they put non-physical evidence into evidence
because it's ephemeral.
No, but I'm just saying that there was history made in this case.
Oh God!
I mean, what's next? We're going to talk about cryptocurrency in a second. Are we going to see cryptocurrency end up in evidence of a court case too? All right, we made it to the end of the Best of Beyond the Bench 2022 Part 1. This was January to June, the first half of the year. Everything from Bob Saget to Microsoft buying Activision to the great interviews, hopefully that I did, that everyone enjoyed, to many controversial stories, the Don't Say Gay bill, Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, Elon Musk buying Twitter, and Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, the guilty court saga that went on for weeks. I don't know. What do you think of the first half?
I can tell you that it was pretty much a microcosm of this year, which is what kind of hack writer came up with that shit? I mean, this is just it was absurd, but I'm glad we had a show here. We had a medium in which we could discuss it.
Just wait, because in part 2, there's going to be so much more.
Well, there's more whimsy. There's more Elon Musk stuff because that didn't go away. There is, unfortunately, more. There is some more tragedy, so because that's kind of unavoidable when you're talking about current events. But yeah, we have rustled up another group of clips for.
Trust me, we could have spent 5 weeks
We could,
On
yeah,
the-
we could have spent 5 weeks on the tangent jokes we went on alone.
So, and we could even joke about Trump if we really wanted to, because that's a spectator sport at this point.
Yeah, it's a cottage industry.
But again, make sure you stay with us on social media at Beyond the Bench One across all our social media platforms. Again, have a Merry Christmas Eve, because that's when this dropped. Have a great Christmas Day tomorrow. Hopefully you spend time with friends and family. We get away from all this controversial bullshit and nonsense.
At least until next week.
At least until next week, when the best of Beyond the Bench Part 2 drops on New Year's Eve.
So until then, for my venerable co-host, Mr. Nick Morgasen, I'm Nick Fodera, and I'm saying happy holidays, everybody. See you back on the bench.
Happy holidays. We'll see you back next week on New Year's Eve, where we will, as Nick said, flush the toilet of 2022 and come back into 2023. See you next week, everybody.
See you then.